Hello, and welcome back to EDH Deck Tricks. This is the first episode of a new series I'm making called Commander Talk, which will be coming out every Wednesday each week. I'm going to take a look at some aspect of Commander and do a little deep dive into that mechanic theme or whatever else it may be for this week. As you may have already guessed from the title of this video and the current screen I'm on right now, this week we're looking at Planeswalkers. We're looking at Super Friends, but more than just that type of strategy. It's generally going to be focused on Planeswalkers. Um, Currently, I'm building a Rakdos Super Friends deck based around Prosper Tomebound, and we're going to be looking at that on the video coming out on Sunday. So that's part of why I really wanted to talk about this topic. Before we get into the video, make sure to like and subscribe. In addition, I'm starting a third series on this channel, which will just be a simple crack-a-pack every week. And so look forward to that. It'll probably be a YouTube short, not an actual full-length video, and that won't affect anything from my other series going forth. All right. Anyways, on to the video. Planeswalkers are often considered a lot weaker in Commander than they are in 1v1 formats. This is for a couple reasons, but primarily, they're just a lot harder to defend in multiplayer, and oftentimes their effects just aren't as good in multiplayer, even though they might be backbreaking in a normal 1v1 format. Oftentimes, the only thing worth using on a Planeswalker and Commander is their ultimate ability, their final loyalty ability, is really sometimes the only thing relevant in their text box, and you don't really want to be playing a card for something that you might just never get to use on the card. And for this reason, a lot of the time you can't just wait to take them up naturally over the turn cycle. You really do need a lot of other effects that are going to boost their loyalty. So if you're in green, there's the new Vorinclex Monsters Raider, which doubles their loyalty when they enter the battlefield. Same with Doubling Season. And then there's the Pier and Toothy, that little partner pair that'll not double, but will add more loyalty counters to them. Those are really good in green. If you're not in green like this Rakdos deck that I'm building, Proliferate is your best friend if you're building a Super Friends deck or a deck that cares a lot about Planeswalkers. You're going to want a ton of Proliferate effects. In addition, you're going to want a lot of protection spells. It's really important because you just have to protect them. If they don't get their ultimate values out, they're just going to die for just a random attacker. It's not going to be great for you. Your strategy is going to fall apart. Um, Thankfully, there are a lot of new tools. There's just effects that prevent your opponents from attacking your Planeswalkers you control. There are effects like fogs. Fogs work really great. The problem with fogs typically is that it's just a one-time thing. It protects you for one turn, but then the next time you're in danger, you don't have anything to use. Planeswalkers actually kind of remove that downside to fogs because the reason you're fogging is to get more value in the future with your Planeswalker that you're protecting. So it's a little different from using it just to survive, even though it also has that added utility of being able to use it to allow you to survive the turn. Another really great effect that's come out a lot lately is Goad. Goad makes your opponents uh, attack another player if possible. So they can't attack your Planeswalkers, they have to attack another player if they can. This also works for effects like Carter, which is very similar to a Goad mechanic, just not named on the card. So yeah, that's a lot of our protection is going to come in the form of fogs and Goad spells. They're really, really strong for helping protect our Planeswalkers. So that comes down to how many Planeswalkers should you run in a deck? Well, if it's a Super Friends deck, you're probably going to want around like 10 to 11, maybe even 12, because a lot of your deck focuses on putting them down and winning the game with them. On the other hand, if you aren't building a Super Friends deck, you shouldn't use more than 1 to 2, honestly. And if your deck can't take immediate use of a Planeswalker, maybe you shouldn't be running it at all. The Planeswalkers who are just slowly going to accumulate value over time are just generally not good enough in Commander to warrant you using them over some other card that's more likely to stay on the battlefield, like an artifact or an enchantment or even a creature. So the problem with Planeswalkers so much of the time is that players will just randomly send attacks into them, and then you lose it, and you can't gain that advantage over time that you can see in a 1v1 format where the multiplayer changes so much about the game that it makes Planeswalkers a lot worse. If your deck, if there's a Planeswalker that has a ability you can use right away to turn it comes down that is really, really useful in your deck, then maybe you should consider running it. But if it's really because it's got a great ultimate or something, if your deck's not designed to make sure your Planeswalkers get to those ultimates, maybe you shouldn't be running it. Another problem with Planeswalkers is that they have a reputation of being really strong in 1v1 formats. Ren and 6 is banned in Legacy. Jace the Mind Sculptor was banned in Modern for a long time. Minx and Boo is tearing apart Vintage of all formats. So Planeswalkers have this really scary legacy and reputation of being extremely powerful. So players will often just attack them out of fear or target you when you're playing with Planeswalkers, even though you might know it's not actually that good of a card. Other players might not make that mental connection, and so you're going to see even more attacks come your way because of your really scary Planeswalker, which might actually not be all that good anyways. And so it also you have to balance, is it worth it to become more of a target when you put a walker down? Is it worth it to run it anyways? And you really got to focus on making sure you can get immediate value out of a Planeswalker rather than just hoping that you can make it survive over enough turns to make it worth it. Because oftentimes it does not happen. I played against a player who was running a mono black Super Friends list that ran every Liliana card because he really liked Liliana. And at one point he had 3 Planeswalkers. I killed all of them in one turn, and it was not even like a difficult part of that attack. It was something I could do, so I did it. And then I ended up winning the game against him because his Planeswalkers are all dead, and I still had all of my cards that were harder to remove, my enchantments, my artifacts, even my creatures a little bit. So if you're just trying to gain incremental value off these Planeswalkers, it's not going to work. You need to either have ways to protect them so you can get that value, or a way to make immediate uses of them, such as with like Vorinclex, where you double all of its loyalty counters when it comes into play, you get its ultimate right away, you win the game from there. Those are good uses of Planeswalkers. Just throwing them in a deck isn't really going to work. So when you're playing with Planeswalkers in EDH, in Commander, you really need to think about if that Planeswalker is powerful enough to warrant the blowouts that you're often going to get. It's not worth it to play your Liliana of the Veil in Commander, even though it's a great card in Modern and Standard. It's just not going to get there in EDH with just +1 of each player discards a card. It's not relevant enough. Anyways, thanks for listening to this video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I will see you in the next one. EDH Deck Tricks, out.